Good afternoon, everybody. Back in the studio today to welcome you to the Israel Brief, brought to you by Lay of the Land, with myself, Rolene Marks. Now, I just want to say thank you to the many of you who have commented that you enjoy the out on location shoot. So I will make you this promise. If I am able to shoot the Israel Brief while I'm out around the country, wherever I may be, I will certainly endeavor to do that. But let's get on with the news headlines, and just a reminder that we bring you those top stories from Israel every Monday to Thursday right here. Now, back from his very, very successful trip to COP26, Naftali Bennett and his delegation landed back in Israel just in time for crucial voting on the final budget. It is expected that the budget could take maybe up until Friday for its final vote. There will be a lot of discussion and, of course, a lot of robust debate around where the allocations go. And this is absolutely crucial for Israel's coalition government. The budget must be passed. If it doesn't pass, then according to Israeli law, the Knesset will be dissolved and Israel will go to elections. Now, we know how many elections Israel have had in the last 2 years, and we are still experiencing that fatigue. So wherever you are in the world, please cross those fingers and hope that the budget goes through. But let's take a look at the final hours of Prime Minister Bennett's visit to COP26. This was the big UN climate conference taking place in Glasgow in Scotland. And the Prime Minister yesterday met with world leaders such as Narendra Modi from India, Justin Trudeau from Canada, the Crown Prince of Bahrain, the first time that they've had the opportunity to meet at a major conference. The other night at a gala event, he managed to meet a whole host of different people, including the Duchess of Cambridge, also known to many as Kate Middleton. And yesterday he had a very, very successful meeting with Bill Gates. Some of the world's richest industry leaders, Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, and many others are at COP26 to look at solutions, how we can all combat the climate change catastrophe if we don't. And it has been announced that Bill Gates will work with Israel to help look for solutions to combat climate change. Gates said that Israel is known for its unbelievable startup ability and innovation. He said, not necessarily our work with climate change or green technology, but as we've heard from our government over the last 2 weeks, this is an area where Israel will be focusing a lot of attention in the near future. The Prime Minister concluded his trip with a meeting of the Chief Rabbi of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth Chief Rabbi Mervis, who said that his presence at COP26 was Kiddush Hashem. It was sanctifying the name of God. And the two leaders spoke about Jewish unity in apparently a very, very sentimental and very, very emotional meeting. So we are happy to have our PM home, and we hope that the hard work, the important work on passing the budget goes through in the next couple of days. Now, if you have the Red Alert app on your phone and you're out of the country and you've heard the alerts go off today, please don't panic. Israel is conducting a series of nationwide drills to test our sirens. There will be further drills later on this evening. So if your Red Alert system does ping, please don't panic. We're not being attacked. We have also launched a large surveillance balloons across our northern frontier. This will monitor and track any aerial and ground potential attacks on the state of Israel. So we are really preparing for any eventuality. It was also announced yesterday that a whole host of US Marines had arrived in the southern city of Eilat. This is CENTCOM. They will train with the IDF to look at ways in which we have to engage in maneuvers and military drills should we have to encounter Iran. Yesterday, we brought you the story of the 7 Sheik Jarrah families who had reportedly accepted an offer of compromise from Israel's Supreme Court. Well, yesterday, the 7 families initially accepted the Supreme Court judgment, which would say that the 7 families would have protected status as tenants as long as they recognize that the properties are owned by Jewish companies. This was a compromise that was accepted until yesterday afternoon, when senior Palestinian Authority officials as well as Hamas officials arrived in Sheik Jarrah and pressured the families to reject the compromise. The families have now officially rejected the Supreme Court ruling. You know, this is very, very unnecessary, and many of us have been saying that this is absolutely emblematic of the conflict between Israel and her Palestinian neighbors, that just when you think a compromise has been reached, or one of the parties, we know which one seemingly backs out. And our final story, I mean, you really just can't make this up, takes us to the New York Times. And we have to ask the question, does the New York Times have some kind of campaign against Zionism and Israel? And it would appear so. One of their reporters by the name of Patrick Kingsley recently published an article where he said he traveled the length and breadth of Israel, and all he found were that Israelis were divided, they were miserable, they were unhappy. He really painted a picture of a very, very miserable country where people didn't have much optimism. He obviously didn't get the memo that Israel has just placed 12th on the happiness index of countries who are the happiest in the world. And this is not the first time Israel has been placed on this list. Every year, consistently, Israel makes it to the top of the happiness index. But what has resulted, which has been quite entertaining, and I myself have been a participant, is many of us have been taking to social media platform Twitter with the hashtag Sad Israel, and showing Mr. Kingsley just how sad we Israelis are. So we have been sharing pictures of our smiles, of our travels, of our families, of our celebrations, of our everyday life here in Israel, so that Mr. Kingsley can get a complete picture of what life is like in Israel. And also his readers and followers will know that if you're going to call us a bunch of miserable sods, we're not going to take it lying down. We're going to deal with it with a good dose of Israeli chutzpah, the best way we know how. So those are your top stories making headlines today. Check out our website at www.layoftheland.online. We'll have an article up there soon on how Tel Aviv is welcoming tourists back after nearly 2 years of slumber. We cannot wait. And check out our Facebook page. We're at Lottel's site. Please give us a like or a follow if you haven't already, and share our content. It helps us get news and stories from Israel that you won't see in the mainstream media, and that combats the New York Times type articles out to as many people as possible. If you like to view us on YouTube and are viewing us there right now, please don't forget to click on the red subscribe button. We really appreciate it when you help us grow our outreach and our community there. And don't forget to like and share our content. Interact with us on Twitter. Hey, maybe share your sad Israel pictures, and you can find us at Lay of the Land 5. That's Lay of the Land with the digit 5. So with the Wednesday edition of the Israel Brief right here in our studio in Modi'in, I'm Rolene Marks, and we will catch you again tomorrow.